We'll do a review on Likutei Sichos and Chelek Chav Beis. This is the second Sicha for the Parshas Tzav. It's a very lomdish, it's a Sicha, very intricate. It discusses the special korban, the korban mincha, the grain korban that the Kohen Gadol brought every day. Half of it he brought in the morning, and half of it he brought in the afternoon. Together, when the oil korban tamid was brought, the Kohen Gadol brought his minchas, called the minchas chavitim. There's a whole discussion over here. What is the status of the minchas chavitim? Is it considered to be a communal sacrifice which the Kohen Gadol brings, or is that considered to be a personal kohen sacrifice? And it has many differences and many applications. The Rebbe actually also explains the Rashi in Chumash. Unusual, the Rebbe usually starts with the Rashi and then he goes to the other part. Here the Rebbe starts with the Gemara and the Rambam, and then eventually the Rebbe also explains it in the Rashi and the different Rashis which become clear, and the Rebbe's insight in the Chlal in this whole process as we'll go step by step. Again, it's quite an intricate and a lomdish sicha in the sugya of kochim and the sugya of what is the chavitim of the Kohen Gadol, what exactly is the status. But let's go start from the beginning in order. Aleph. In Haitikef Sedre, in this week's portion, wird erzählt wegen dem Din. It relates about the law von Chavite Kohen Gadol. The Chavite Kohen Gadol, because they needed to fry it after baking it on the machvas, on the pan, it's called the Chavite. It's the Chavite of the Kohen Gadol. It's the special offering that the Kohen Gadol brought. As jeden Tag, that every day, Tomid, all the time. This including Shabbos, every day of the week. Darf der Kohen Gadol bringen, that the Kohen Gadol needs to bring mi beisoi, he has to bring from his own, meaning it's on his cost, as the Rebbe quotes from the Gemara in Menachos. So he has to pay for it. A korban mincha, which is a offering of a mincha, of a grain korban, of a flour, of ingredients. Machatzisa ba'boiker u'machatzisa ba'oref. Half of it is brought in the morning, and half of it is brought in the evening. Every day, the Kohen Gadol has to bring a korban mincha, chavite Kohen Gadol. So now, what happens if the Kohen Gadol dies? So there is no Kohen Gadol now. So it's obvious that you do, this is goes according to all opinion, that you still need to bring every day a chavite Kohen Gadol. You still have to bring that chavis once in the morning and the afternoon, even after the Kohen Gadol dies. If they didn't have a chance or they didn't appoint yet another Kohen Gadol, you're still going to bring the chavit of the Kohen Gadol. Well, the question is, who pays for that? Is it brought once the Kohen Gadol is gone, so he's no more Kohen Gadol, he died. And therefore, you're going to continue bringing that korban, but it's going to come from the funding of the Lishka, the same thing as the regular Korbanos Sibur. All the Korbanos Sibur come from the funds that they collected from the Machzis HaShekel. They will also fund this Korban Chavitim of the Mincha of the Kohen Gadol until there is a new Kohen Gadol. That's one opinion. The other opinion says no, that it continues coming from the assets. The sons or the Yorshim, as we'll see soon in the Sikha, they have to bring the korban. V is their din. What is the halacha? Oib meis Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol died. And they did not appoint another one in place of him. If they did appoint, the son of the Kohen Gadol became the Kohen Gadol, so then it will be no question, then he'll bring it. But if they didn't appoint, so there is a space between one Kohen Gadol and the other one. Is faran in them apluktus hatanoim. So we have a disagreement of Tanoim. Mishalmi hoiso kreva. From whom, who's responsible, whose assets was this carbon brought? The Minchas Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Shimon zogt. Rabbi Shimon says, as Mishal Tzibur. According to Rabbi Shimon, the community brought it. Men bringt es memomon Tzibur. You bring this from the money of the community. Und Rabbi Yehuda halt, and Rabbi Yehuda holds as Mishal Yershim. It's the inheritors of the Kohen Gadol. Presumably, they will become the next Kohanim Gedolim, one of the children, one of the inheritors. But until the Yershim, until the inheritors, they will have to bring the from Kohen Gadol, bringing them Korban Mincha, and we'll see this will be part of the discussion exactly the relationship between the Yershim and the Rambam. The Rebbe brings it down with the father, with the Kohen Gadol. But the Mishnah nevertheless says that you bring in Mishal Yershim, the Yershim from Kohen Gadol, the inheritors of the Kohen Gadol, bringing them Korban Mincha. They need to fund. They bring this Korban Mincha. Biz mis memane another Kohen Gadol until you appoint another Kohen Gadol. Until that time, the children, the Yershim, they bring the Chavite Kohen Gadol, the special Korban the Kohen Gadol. Now, what's the reasoning? Who's responsible? So in Gemara, werd gebracht a Braise, was is mevair tama machloikis. The Gemara brings a Braise which explains the reasoning for the arguments. They disagree how we learn it out from the pasuk. Now, in the pasuk it says, in the simple meaning of the pasuk, we're saying that once the Kohen Gadol dies, so the not next Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol is referred to in the pasuk the Kohen HaMashiach. He's anointed because a Kohen Gadol, as when he becomes Kohen Gadol, you anoint the Kohen Gadol. So the pasuk says that the Kohen Gadol, who is anointed, shall continue to bring this constant korban. It's the Pashto Pshat and pasuk, but the Rabbi Yehuda teaches it. In Mavar the Machlotama Machloikas, Rabbi Yehuda darshan the pasuk. He expounds the verse. The verse says like this: Va'koyen HaMoshiach, the anointed Kohen, Tachtov, who takes the place Mibonov of one of the sons, because the son of the Kohen Gadol becomes the next Kohen Gadol. So the anointed Kohen, the one who becomes the Kohen Gadol in the place of one of his sons, Yasa Oiso, will continue to do this Minchas Chavitim, this Korban Tomid that the Kohen Gadol brings. How does he teach it? So he darshes the post the Hochi Mashma. The way he teaches it as follows: Hakoyen HaMoshiach Kishameis. So we're talking about over here a situation. Va'koyen HaMoshiach. Stop. The Kohen who was anointed. What happens when he dies? And then the pasuk tells you what we're supposed to do. Not the other one is made a Kohen Gadol. We're still talking, there's no Kohen Gadol. Tachtov mibonov yasa oisa. That in his place, one of his sons should be doing it. So Rabbi Yehuda says that it's the sons, one of the sons needs to do it. Bring the korban, to continue bringing. So the Kohen HaMashiach is talking about the anointed Kohen, the Kohen Gadol died. So what do we do with the Korban Mincha that he used to bring? Kohen HaMashiach Kishameis. Tachtov, Echad Mibanav Yasoisa. So one of his sons should continue doing the korban until we point another korban. That's the way Rabbi Yehuda dashes the pasuk, and that's why it says it comes Mishal Yorshu. Or Rab Shimon learned Arois from pasuk, and Rab Shimon learns from the verse. The pasuk says Chukas Olam. This is an eternal statue. What does it mean? He says Chukas Olam. He teaches Mishal Olam. It's a statue for the world, meaning for the public, for the community. Mishal Olam, Mishal Tzibur Mitrumas Halishka. You bring it from the Tzibur Mitrumas Halishka. So the Rebbe wants to say, first of all, the Rebbe wants to establish this korban that we bring after the death of the Kohen Gadol, no matter which opinion, whether Reb Shimon or Reb Yehuda, who pays for it, it's not like a new obligation. The Torah says, oh, okay, now there's no Kohen Gadol, we're going to make a new obligation of bringing a korban in the absence of the Kohen. Let somebody else bring the korban. Who brings it? The tzibur or the sons or the yarshim? No, it's all. Everybody agrees that this is a continuation of the korban that the Kohen Gadol brings. This is to continue until we bring the other korban, but it is for the Kohen Gadol. The only question is who pays for it. From the Mloshen HaMishnah, from the language of the Mishnah, Mishal Mi Hoysa Kreva, from whom was it brought? From the Mloshen from Beit Tanoim in Zeir Reid. And similarly, also in the language of both of the Tanoim, as they say, the halacha is mashma, is understood as the chiyuv hakrova midiraisa, that the obligation that we have to bring the orban, the tomei, the chavite, kohen gadol, that obligation minatoira when loy minu achar tachtov, when they did not appoint anybody in their place, so there is no kohen gadol now. It's not a bezunder ander chiv. It's not a separate, a different obligation. One obligation for the kohen gadol. Now the kohen gadol, there is a new obligation for a son, for the tzibur, for nakrovas chavitim. So it's not a separate than the obligation that the kohen gadol brought by himself. Thus haste, that would mean that what? As the Torah mechadish given noch achiyuv hakrovas chavitim be'meis kohen gadol. That the Torah came up with a new korban, that there is a novel korban after there was an obligation of the kohen gadol. So when he dies, there's a new no. Das is a hemshech und in demselben Zug chiyuv hakrova. This is rather a continuation. It's the same category of the offering of the korban. The kohen gadol alein is as makriv as the kohen gadol brings itself. The Rebbe wants to bring out and saying this is not a different korban from these machloikes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, as what happens with the korban after the kohen gadol dies. The Rebbe wants to learn from that on the status of the kohen gadol when he is alive, and the Rebbe therefore says that the status that we're talking about over here, who has to bring the korban, is a follow-up to really when the kohen gadol brings it. What's the status of his korban? Is it an individual korban? Is it a community korban? So based on this, we can say, as the plukta in droshes sakasuvim, this disagreement in the expounding of the psukim is verbundun mit plukta. This is associated with an argument in toichem hakorban from the chavite kohen gadol, in what is the whole idea, the content of what are the chavite kohen gadol, what is their status, how do we define the chavite kohen gadol? Also when the kohen gadol himself is makriv. So we have a disagreement whether that is considered an individual personal korban, or is it sort of as representative of the whole community? Here we see this two issues manifest itself after his death. That is because this is associated to the two possible ways or the disagreement. What is the status of the Chavite Kohen Gadol during his lifetime? And therefore, there it also makes a difference after his death, as the Rebbe will continue to explain. On Ois Beis, the Rebbe continues to discuss and to try to figure out what is the Chavite Kohen Gadol. Are they we know they're brought by the Kohen Gadol. He pays for it, but is it totally personal, private, or it is also similar and has similarity to a korban tzibur, which essentially it has actually both. Beis, as far as the definition of these chavitim of the Kohen Gadol, notwithstanding the fact that they are brought from the money, personal money of the Kohen Gadol, this is referred to as the korban of the Kohen Gadol. We call it Chavite Kohen Gadol, the Chavite of the Kohen Gadol. Kenman Kleden, but you can still try to figure out whether they are entirely defined as an individual korban. Others is einen kein korban tzibur. Maybe they are also a little bit like a korban tzibur. But Yesh Loimar, the Rebbe says, we can say das is verbunden mit taimei hakorban, that is connected to the reason of the korban. If the korban comes for the Kohen Gadol as an agent for the Jewish people, then it's sort of a community issue, is because he is a public figure and the Kohen Gadol, or it's meant to humble the Kohen Gadol, as the Rebbe says, or various different other reasons. Let's look aside. The Chinuch is Masbir. The Chinuch explains, Misharoshe ha-mitzvah, what is the root of this mitzvah? Why we bring why does the Kohen Gadol bring it? The Kohen Gadol is the agent between the Yidden and the Father in heaven. What does it mean he's the agent? He is the one that carries prayer to Hashem for him, for them, for the Jewish people. And through his prayers and through the act of his korbanos, miskaprim heim derato. That's why it is fitting for such a man, such a person, that he should always have a special korban, just like the constant korbanos of the community. And for this, it'll help him and them. That's from the language of the Chinuch. According to this explanation, it turns out, as minchas hachavitim, which is the tomit from Kohen Gadol, the mincha of the chavitim, which is the constant of the Kohen Gadol brings, is bishvil kaporas hatzibur. That is for the purpose of atoning for the community. Al derech v'timidah hatzibur. That's similar to the constant of the timidim, the sacrifices, the oilos that we bring, which are meant as the constant korbanot for the community, and similar is the chavitim of the Kohen Gadol. Ubefrat, especially taking consideration as mizmakriv the chavite Kohen Gadol, that they offer these chavitim of the Kohen Gadol zusammen mit dem korban tomid, together with the korban tomid. This mincha, which was done on the machvas and called the Chavite Kohen Gadol, is brought together with the korban tomid. That's one way. But the Rebbe says, however, over mashma, but it's understood. Move on. It appears and understood as kama v'kama learning that many others learn as the korban is verbunden bloß mit dem Kohen Gadol atzmi, that the korban is associated only with the Kohen Gadol himself als yochid as an individual. Wie sie is verstandig von kama v'kama von the timing, as we can understand from many and many of the reasons, was the meforshe time mitzvah sein and masbir. The commentaries who give reasons for the mitzvahs, they explain. Ledogma, the Rebbe says, say for example, the Barbanel brings kama v'kama. He brings many reasons, umehem of them. He says, Kidei lahachnis lifnei Hashem ba'anove u'b'simonei dalus, in order to bring in before Hashem with humility and with signs of being poor. Like a poor and a very poor person, Hanitzav Lifnei Adin Kol Ha'oretz, who is standing in front of the master of the whole world. We know that when you bring a korban of flour, that's meant for Dali Dalus, people that are very poor, they can't afford by the korban oil of a they can't afford a better korban. So the Kohen Gadol brings this poor korban to show humility and to show signs of being poor, because before the master of the world we're all poor. Another Sherotza Hashem Shechol Yoim Yiyu Krevim Lefonov Korban Yochid. Hashem wants that every day we should bring an individual korban, the korban tzibur, and a community when we bring two korbanos. Hulu. Derech klal v'derech prat hulu, in a general way and in a specific way. That's why we have the two korbanos, the korban tzibur. So this all tells us this is a private, personal korban of the Kohen Gadol. So based on these two ideas, when the Kohen Gadol himself brings the korban, we can say that's why there's a difference. What happens when the Kohen Gadol passes away and there's no other Kohen Gadol? Yesh loymar as the pluk tahanal, the above machloikis between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Then Kohen Gadol shemes. When the Kohen Gadol dies, they had not appointed another place, another Kohen Gadol will take his place. Who was it brought from? Is totally in the Tzvei Sugi Taimanal. That hinges on the two categories of the reasons that we say why we brought the Kohen Gadol, why we brought in any event to begin with. Is it as an agent of the community, or it's something that the individual needs to bring his own? If we are going to accept as the korban from Kohen Gadol, that the korban of Kohen Gadol is al derech v'korban tzibur, it's similar to a public offering, daf oiskommen, so it needs to turn out. It comes out, therefore, as when it says nitokin Kohen Gadol to bring in them korban. When we don't have the Kohen Gadol to bring the korban, so who is going to bring that korban? Then it has to be brought from the community himself, the money of the community. But if we're going to accept as the korban Kohen Gadol that this Kohen Gadol korban has not a connection to the community, it is just the Kohen Gadol's. It's a personal, not as verbunden mit Kohen Gadol. But it's tied, associated with the Kohen Gadol as an individual. Darf demult, so that's the case. In the case when Meis Kohen Gadol, when the Kohen Gadol dies, the korban gebracht werden von the Yershim. Then it needs to be brought according to by the Yershim. So these are the two ideas of a chavitim with the Kohen Gadol, whether it's really similar to a public, and therefore when he dies and there's we bring it from the public, or it's really a personal, and therefore when he dies it's brought from the family. And the Rebbe is now going to explain with this explanation also a difficult piece of Rambam in Ois Gimel. Ois Gimel. Apia now, based on the above, as Loit Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, darf der Korban gebracht werden Michel Yershim, that the Korban needs to be brought by the inheritance. Therefore, why are the inheritance bringing them? Was der Korban is verbunden mit dem Kohen Gadol Atzmai, because the Chavite Kohen Gadol are associated with the Kohen Gadol itself, that werden verstandig, der Loshen Rambam in der Hanocha Hanal, we will be able to understand the Rambam's language in the above halacha. The Rebbe is going to bring down the Rambam now, and he's going to point out two things that seemingly are difficult in the Rambam, but now that we're explaining that this is associated with the Kohen Gadol itself, explains the Rambam. The Rambam paskent, the Rambam rules, Meis Kohen Gadol b'shachris. This is a situation not where he dies and he didn't point another korban, but he died in midday, and he has to bring one part in the morning and other part in the afternoon. So the Rambam rules, Meis Kohen Gadol b'shachris, achar shehikriv chatzi ha'isorim. If he dies in the morning after offering a half of the isorim, and they did not appoint yet another kohen. So he says, Mivim hayoshim isorin sholem avur kaparosei. So the inheritor, the inheritors of the Kohen Gadol will bring only a half of there, so they'll bring their other half. So it should be a Sorim Sholem Avur Kaparosei, for the atonement of the Kohen Gadol. These words that the Rambam says for the atonement, who was talking about a Kohen? We didn't know that the Kohen Gadol brings Chavite Kohen Gadol as a kapora, and this is for his kapora. Is l'chayre nit move on? Was is der Teuchen von der Heisofe? What is the idea, the content, the meaning of this edition? As the Yershim bringing them korban avur kaparose, that they bring it for the atonement of the Kohen Gadol. From wann nimmt es der Rambam? Where does the Rambam know this, that this other thing is a kapora? Nor der Biren them. But what is the explanation? Is there mitzvah that the Rambam undeiten den Tam? The Rambam is trying to point to the reason. Parvos is der din as mevin hayorshim. Why is it that the Yorshim bring it and not the community? The community should bring it. So the Rambam says, because it's kaparosai. But the Rambam tam for vos is the din as mevina Yershim. Why do the Yershim bring it? It's because it's a kapora. It's something to do with the Kohen Gadol himself. But before the Rebbe explains, the Rebbe explained another issue we have. We have another point here. The l'chayre, the words of Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah are a little different than the Pasuk. In the Pasuk, it says, the way Rabbi Yehuda darshans, it says when the Kohen Gadol dies, one of his sons should bring it. But the Rabbi Yehuda doesn't say one of his sons. Rabbi Yehuda says the Yorshim. From them, was Rabbi Yehuda is Mishane from Loshen HaPosik. From the fact that Rabbi Yehuda changes from the language of the verse, Mi bonov yasa oiso, from the sons will bring the Minchas Chavitim when the Kohen Gadol dies. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? Unzogt Yershim. He says the inheritors bring it. Is verstandig, it's understood what he's also saying here, as dos meint nit davke bonim zchorim, that this does not mean necessarily boys the pasuk it says Mabonov would mean like one of the sons, the boys. Now the difference is a boy, conceivably, if he becomes a Kohen Gadol, he could become the Kohen Gadol. He brings also a regular minchas chavitim from a Kohen he can bring when he becomes a Kohen. So there could be a possibility, maybe they bring it. But the Rambam writes from the Rabbi Yehuda's words that he says Yershim, he wants to say no. Even if it's not a son, even if there's only daughters there. The Rebbe explains in the parenthesis. Sons, if we just learn, says not only sons have a special status. They are also within the definitions, they could bring a minchas chavitim. It goes without saying, if one of the sons is fit to fulfill the Kohen's place, so he'll become the Kohen Gadol. So even though before they appointed him Kohen Gadol, he already has the potential to be a Kohen Gadol, to bring a minchas chavitim. Unvert später the Kohen Gadol, and then later on he becomes a Kohen Gadol. So that's more clearly understood. That he can bring the Kohen, but even a regular son, not a filu bon of stam, just a son who's going to remain a Kohen Hedget. They are Kohanim and they'll remain plain, not Kohen Gadol, just remain ordinary Kohanim. Bringen doch minchas chavitim b'yom shenischanchu. So they also bring a minchas chavitim of the Kohanim at the day that they are inaugurated, when they start doing their kahuna, they bring a minchas chavitim. So there is a connection with minchas chavitim. So the Rabbi Yehuda wants to tell us, no, not only boys, not only sons who have a connection with chavitim, nor afilu if their Kohen Gadol hot nit kein bonim zechorim. Even if the Kohen Gadol has no male sons, Uzaine Yershim, Zainen Bonus, and his inheritors are sons. Darfun Zay bringen the minchas chavitim. So the daughters have to bring the minchas chavitim. They are Yershim because it mainly ben. So the daughter, so the daughter gets the nachla. So the daughter has to bring the korban chavitim. That is the meaning from Rabbi Yehuda saying Yershim versus Bono. How does Rabbi Yehuda know that? In the Basik it says Bonov. So we need to understand from Rabbi Yehuda dem Chidush, where does he take this novel idea? As di Yershim stam bonus, that also these inheritors, which means generally all Yershim, which includes the daughters, davon bringen them korban, have to bring this korban. Unit nor because of Bonov, and not like it says clearly. The pasuk says sons, doesn't say inheritors, not include daughter. How does Rabbi Yehuda know that? But Entfer does the Rambam. So the Rambam answers this as der korban is nit fun und als the Yershim mitzad atzmai. It's not of, and it's not the Yershim on their own, they're bringing it. Nor avur kaparosoi, that is associated to the previous kohen. It's not a new thing for them bringing it because of they're bringing until we have another kohen gadol, they bring it for the other kohen gadol for his atonement. Those was the Yershim bringing them korban. The fact that these inheritors bring the korban is to leave their kapora from the moirish, that is to atone for the one who is inheriting them. Bal chavite kohen gadol is an inyan from kapore from kohen gadol, because these chavite kohen gadol are a idea, is atonement. That's taka atonement kohen gadol. That's how Rabbi Yehuda knows, and that's why, because that's the whole idea of the chavite kohen gadol according to Rabbi Yehuda. Is as nit a geder fun zeir korban. It's not the children's or it's the father's, not a korban from them moirish. It's a korban of the inheritors. They bring in as yershim, they bring them korban shalavihem, the father's korban. It's the father. The father continues to bring the korban through the children. So when he dies, they're bringing in the inheritance, bringing his korban. That's why, that's the whole idea of the korban of the Kohen Gadol, Chavite Kohen Gadol. Nevertheless, what do we see in here? We see that the Kohen Gadol korban has a personal part to it. And we can also say that this is something which is a korban tzibur, as we brought from the chinuch before, or the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who says that the sons bring it. And because of this, we will also be able to understand, the Rebbe is going to go over now to explain the difficult pshat in Rashi on these psukim. Dalet. Loitun biur hanal in Chavite Kohen Gadol, according to the above explanation, in the Chavite Kohen Gadol, es seinen in Geder fun kein korban tzibur, that they are in the definition, and they are like a korban tzibur. So we can also say that it is a personal korban shala Kohen Gadol. So there is two possibilities, but we understand now that Rashi wants to point to one of the ways that, to make it very clearly, that that Rashi believes that it goes like that it goes like Rashi is trying to tell us that the Rebbe will learn that it's a korban tzibur, like Reb Shimon says, and not like Rabbi Yehuda, as we will see after the Rebbe will explain all the various different Rashis in the Hamshach and the continuation of the Sikha. So that's what Rebbe says. Because we have both possibilities. Betoich werden verstandig, der Pirush Rashi auf dem Posik. V'amakoyen HaMashiach tachtav bonav yasa oisa kolil toktor. What Rashi is trying to tell us, that this is not a korban yochid, but it is a korban tzibur, like Rabbi Shimon. Rashi is maitig the verter Hamashiach tachtov mibonov, the anointed one, the Kohen HaMashiach, in the place of the Kohen Gadol from his sons. Und is mefarish, he truths around Hamashiach mibonov tachtov, the one who is anointed from his son in his place. Rashi just turns around the word tachtov mibonov to mibonov tachtov. What is Rashi accomplishing here? The Rebbe is going to ask. Und dennoch is mighty the verter, and then afterwards he brings the words of kolil toktor, that it's completely burnt. That this minchas chavitim that the Kohen HaMashiach brings is totally burnt as an offering on the Mizbeach. Unis mefarish, how does Rashi explain that? Ein nikmetzes. Most of the time, when we bring a regular korban mincha, you do the kemitza, take with the fingers, and you bring that on the Mizbeach, and the rest is eaten by the Kohanim. But over here, Rashi says, Ein nikmetzes. You don't do kemitza over here. So that the leftover, after, besides the kemitza, that is eaten, it's not done. Kolul toktar el kulu kol, you bring it all on the mizbeach. Okay, that's what Rashi teaches over here. So that the korban mincha, the minchas chavitim from the Kohen Gadol, instead of usually just taking a kemitza and burning it on the mizbeach and the rest is eaten, over here is kolul toktar. So the Rebbe wants to explain the two Rashi. So the first Rashi is in Ersten Dibur nit verstandig. In the first word, first Rashi is not understood. Wie Meforshim seine Medaik, as Meforshim already asking. Was will Rashi be pirushe? What does Rashi want with his commentary? What does it consist on? In Hepech Seder Atevis and Pasuk, he just switched around the words of the Pasuk. What does Rashi mean here by saying not Mashiach Tachtov Mibonov, but Mashiach Mibonov Tachtov? What is Rashi gaining over here? What does it mean to change from Mashiach Tachtov Mibonov to Mashiach Mibonov Tachtov? We'll see that the Rebbe will explain all this very beautifully. Was werden mit nishtane oder niteis of what is changed, or what is added in Avonas HaPosuk and understanding the verse. Euch in zweiten Dibur is schwer. Also in the second Rashi, we also have a problem. Was ist Rashi machadish? What is Rashi novelty here? What is he coming to teach us? Something new. Pashtus von Kolil Toktor, the simple meaning of totally burnt. Hat nur ein Abteich, it can only mean one thing, as misdos in ganzen maktir. Agabe ha-mizbeach, that you are totally burned on the mizbeach. As blood gor nit lachila, there's nothing left for eating, so it's all burnt. So why does Rashi have to say that the leftover is not eaten? But it means kol toktor, means you burn it all. Noch better. Furthermore, Rashi uses the word kolil without explaining what it means. Rashi aleino chefrir gizogdem loshen. Rashi himself already used the loshen. Einli elo minchas Yisrael shenikmetzes. I only know it applies to a minchas Yisrael which gets kmitza. Minchas kohen shul kol. Rashi says the word of kohen, so it says a kohen's mincha is totally burned. Und is der meinit moisibir. It doesn't add the word kolil means that it's all on the mizbeach because you don't eat the leftovers. Rashi doesn't say anything. Says why Rashi says the word kolil? As men versteht bepashtos was kolil made, that it's self-understood what kolil means. As me verbrennt dem ganzen korban, that you burn the entire korban. Ein was darf Rashi do mevair sein? Why does Rashi need to over here explain with the ganze ariches and going into the whole lengthly? Einik metzes liyes shirel necholim, that the kmitza is not you don't do kmitza so that the leftovers are eaten. It's all burnt. That means kolum is all burnt. Why does Rashi have to go in and tell us what it's not? It's all burnt. And we see Rashi said to use the word kolil by the Minchas Kohen, and he had no problem with it. And then weiter, from Pasuk Shalachar is in the next Pasuk, it says, V'chol Minchas Kohen, kolil tia loy tocha. Over there, it's talking about regularly when a kohen brings a korban mincha. Again, over there, it's kolul tila. It's totally burned. Lo yisayachel. Over there, you don't eat it at all. A mincha, any mincha from a kohen, you don't eat. Is Rashi mefarish the word kolul? Rashi says what means kolul? Kulo shovel legavoye. It's all equal to Hashem. So over here too, it's why does it to move Yisrael? Nutzt Rashi the word kolil on kein shum pirush b'zeh. First, Rashi uses the word kolil without any interpretation. Just says the word kolil means totally burned. The noch is mevayra to smeint any kmetzes chulu. Then it means that it don't take a mitzvah from it. Well, achri kol zen. After all this, Taishterer stop the word kolil, and then Rashi says what kolil means. It's all for Hashem. What's going on here? The Rebbe explains it now beautifully in Oishei that there's actually a difference. The Minchas Kohen, the regular Minchas Kohen, when the Pasuk says Kolil, over there you didn't even do Kemitza. You burnt it all, the whole korban. By the korban of the Kohen Gadol, you did Kemitza, but the Shireh is not Necholim, but there was Kemitza over there. And the reason for the difference is because the korban of the Kohen Gadol is not just a personal korban like the Kohen Hedyot, which has no Kemitza, and saying he's a Kohen Gadol, he's a Kohen, but a Kohen Gadol. But the Kohen Gadol's mincha is as representative, is like a tzibur. And because it's a tzibur, it doesn't have the status of a personal Kohen, which is over. There's no Kemitza there. It has the status of a korban tzibur, which has Kemitza. Still, because it's brought by a Kohen, it's kolul toktor, so we don't, but you do Kemitza. And that's the difference of the real shyness, as the Rebbe will explain. Hey. And this all is based on the language of the pasuk. The shaila in pasuk was Rashi bavorn is, what's the question in the verse that Rashi is answering here? The shinu haloshen in the tzvei pesukim is the change of language in the two verses. Pasuk says differently in the verse when it talks about the Kohen Gadol, and the works when it talks about the Chol Minchas Kohen. In the Merishtum Pasuk, in the first Pasuk, when we talk about the Mincha of the anointed Kohen, the Kohen Gadol's Mincha, state over there, it says, Kolil Toktor, need to burn it fully. Toktor, it's burnt. In Zweitem Pasuk, where it's wegen Chol Minchas Kohen, so over there it says it's fully burned. Over there state kolil ti, it should be all. Not burned all, but kolil ti, it should be all. Whether toktor, just the burning, is completely, or bechlal, it's a complete, that there's not even, as the Rebbe explains, Kemitza. For the Pshinu in the Psukim is Rashi Medayik. From this change in the verses, Rashi learns, derives, these are two separate ideas and different ways in Kolin. Und das ist mudgesh mavur in der Arichus Loshu Rashi. That's emphasized and explained in the length of Rashi's language. Kolil Toktor is Rashi Mefarish. When it says Kolil Toktor by the Kohen Gadol, Rashi explains, Ein nikmetzes liyis shirel nacholim elakula kolil. It's not made koimetz to the extent that you should eat the shirayim, but you do the kemitza. It's kula kolil, but you make the kemitza, but it's all burnt. With the length in his language, Rashi makes clear his intent. As kolil toktor, when it says burn it all, make nit to shelos and the meaning from kemitza, does not mean to negate the idea of kemitza. Kemitza darf sein, there needs to be kemitza. It's such a kemitza in which the leftovers are not eating. So there is kemitza, but you burn it. You also bring on the mizbeach, which is koimetz korav la'atzmoi, v'shirayim korav la'atzmoi. They are burnt. It's the opinion of the Gemara that each one is burnt by themselves. You do kemitza, and they're burnt separately. And this is the pirush from Kolul Tokter. As outside the koimetz, side the shiraim and nikter of mizbeach, that both the koimetz and the shiraim are brought on the mizbeach. That zweiter kolil tiya, but when it says kolil tiya, but steht by kol minchas kohen, which is by minchas kohen, is pirusha kulu shovel legavoya. It's all equal to the gavoya. Is there in der mincha is nitoke vanander tail? There's no separation. Oifa koimetz and if shiraim, there's no koimetz, no shiraim. Nor is vert in ganzen niktar beshova legavoya. This is entirely offered the gavoya. You don't even do kemitza. Since they berhoip nitoke kemitza, they're all not kemitza. Kolil tiya. It remains totally as if like kolil bavios as is. You don't do kemitza and you burn it as it is in melachatcha. And this will also explain what Rashi is trying to change around in the words over here to make clear what's the actual reason for this. Oizvav. Vav. My time von dem Chiluk zwischen Minchas Kohen Godel and Minchas Kohen Stam. What is the reason between the Minchas Kohen Godel, which you do Kemitza and burn the Shirayim and the Kemitza together and separately, or we never do Kemitza in the first place, the Minchas Kohen Stam, which doesn't have Kemitza? Is a pianal siv base, based on the above siv base, verstanding the pashtus. It's understood very simply. Rashi nemt on the pshuto shel mikra. Rashi accepts in the simple studying of the verse and the literal meaning of the pasuk, as the chavite kohen gadol was kumen tomid b'chol yom, that these chavitim of the kohen gadol, which come constantly every day, it's not defined as a korban was the kohen gadol bringt als yochid, that the kohen gadol brings as an individual. It's selben sug via minchas kohen stam, in the same category as a general minchas kohen. Nor mitai sofe as dosis parbundum mit kohuna gedola, but it's a kohen gadol. But this is a kohen gadol, so you have a kohen bringing and you have a kohen gadol bringing. So this is an addition. No, that's not it. It's not the same category. It's not just a little different, but it's a different category. Nordos is a korban. Rashi learns that this is a korban was a bringt als shliach from Klal Yisrael, that he brings as an agent of Klal Yisrael. Al derech with the korban tomit. This is similar to the korban tomit, ke'ein korban tzibur, like a korban tzibur. Is move on. Now we understand. Favos Rashi learned as chavite kohen gadol darf haben kemitza. Why Rashi learns that the chavite the kohen gadol need kemitza? Weil das is nicht a gather von a minchas kohen, nor al derech ve minchas tzibur. That's not defined as a mincha of a kohen, but this is similar to a minchas tzibur, to a community mincha. Ubemele darf es haben kemitza, like a mincha of a tzibur. Needs kemitza, as wie alle andere menoches, was werden gebracht auf dem Mizbeach, like all other menoches that are brought in the Mizbeach, they do kemitza. So how come it's burnt then? Nor wie bald as lepoil, since in actuality where the mincha gebracht durch ein kohen gadol, it's brought through the kohen gadol, hot as der far oicha his damos v'ishtabos, it also has a comparison. It is equals out to minchas kohen as ein shiro nacholim, that the leftovers are not eaten. So it has some similarity there too, but mainly you do kemitza like every minchas tzibur. But at the end of the day, it's brought by kohen gadol. It's also similar to minchas kohen, which you don't eat the shirayim, but you do shirayim. We do kemitza. And this explains the Rashi's change of wording that we asked before. My time is Rashi oich magdim beperusha betchilas hakosuf, and that's why Rashi also introduces in his commentary in the beginning of the pasuk, he changes it akoy and Mashiach tachtov mibonov unis mishane, and he changes mefarish. That means that he explains hamoshiach mibonov tachtov. What is Rashi telling us over here? Rashi is telling us how to teach the words v'koyin hamashiach mibonov tachtov, that the word is not a koyin hamashiach and then stop tachtov mibonov, that his son, like Rabbi Yehuda darshans, but rather v'hakoyin hamashiach mibonov. So it's not the Mashiach mibonov, and the tachtu is on the bonov. Let's see what Rashi, the Rebbe explains. The mid will Rashi shelu zayin im shuta shel mikra dem pirush for Rabbi Yehuda. Rashi is coming to reject the interpretation of Rabbi Yehuda in the simple meaning of the pasuk. Lefi Pirush Rabbi Yehuda Kumtois, according to Rabbi Yehuda's interpretation, it turns out, as the word mibonov, the word from his son, the word tachtov, is not kosher to word Mashiach. It's not Mashiach mibonov, it's Mashiach nor tsuyase. The Kohen Mashiach dies, and then the son who takes his mibonov brings the korban. Yase. Nitzach is about Mashiach nor tsuyase again. Und the Pirush Apostle is Kinal, what's the meaning? Mashiach stop. If he dies, everybody's mace is what happens. Then it describes what you do in that case. Tachto mi bonov yasoisa. Darfum bonov bring in the korban min chatacht. That would be according to the Yehuda. So, und afal pias der Pirush is a chayre weit from Pashtus hakosuf. This is sort of far away from the simple meaning of the verse. But given an orthozogen, they may have said, as the mitvos the posik zog them seder. You would think maybe the Torah also hints to this. On shtot mibonov tachtov, instead of saying Mashiach mibonov tachtov should become a kohen, the kohen of Mashiach mibonov tachtov, the Mashiach from his son tachtov in his place should bring the korban. So the Torah says tachtov mibonov is coming to hint is a purpose is noch adin noisef like Pirush Apostle from Posik. In addition to this simple meaning of the Posik, that the following son who became the Kohen Gadol, as the noch kumen diker Kohen, the Mashiach da bringen chavite Kohen Gadol, that the following anointed Kohen, the Kohen Gadol, has to bring the chavite Kohen Gadol. He would have said, why does the Torah say as Kohen Gadol shemeis, that a Kohen Gadol that dies, bring him bonov zayin korban. That's Vidas Rabbi Yehuda, his son. That's why it says in the pasuk that they should bring mibonov tachtov should bring her. Vidas Rabbi Yehuda. Is Rashi shel than Pirush in Pshuta Mikra. Rashi therefore rejects the Pshat in Pshuta Mikra and learned. As is kilu, as volt mit Chatchile gestanden in Posik, as if it was said Chatchile in Posik Hamoshiach mibonov tachtov. That means it's all the Mashiach who is mibonov tachtov. It's all talking about. It's not that tachtov should bring it. Hamoshiach mibonov tachtov. But is it mafsik zwischen Mashiach und mibonov? We're not interrupting between Mashiach and bonov. The Kohen Mashiach was his mibonov tachtov. We're describing who is the Kohen Mashiach. He is from his sons underneath. Aber nit bonov stam, but not stam. Vorum Rashi dem ton, because it was only the obligation. It's not a family obligation. But in Rashi, it's an obligation only on the Mashiach mibonov tachtov, those who are in his place. Aber nicht bonov stam. But in Rashi, talking als Chitik and Godel, kommen als Kapore von Klal Yisrael. Und der Kohen Godel bringt als Shliach von Klal Yisrael. They come as atonement for the Jewish people, and the Kohen Gadol brings them as an agent of Klal Yisrael. B'meila hot nit ken ort, and therefore it doesn't make really fit. As Kohen Gadol shemeis is bonov, that the Kohen Gadol who died, his Tammuz sons who are not going to be a Kohen Gadol, v'chazai nit ken Kohen Gadol, nit ken shluch of Klal Yisrael, they're not agents of Klal Yisrael. So I'm bringing the korban, should bring the korban. No. It has to be the sons that are Kohanim Gedolim. So it's the bone of Metachtav who become Kohanim Gedolim, they bring it, but not Stambar. I mean, I guess, but what happens until they appoint the other son? Okay, then you bring him Mishal Tzibur, that's the Reb Shimon, but that's not the Pshat and the Pasuk. The Pasuk is talking only about the Kohen Gadol who takes his place. So therefore, a Kohen Gadol shemeis shouldn't take it. The Rebbe says don't take it, don't bring the korban. Even as the tzibur will bring the korban if there's no kohen gadol at all. But the pasuk, it's not a personal. It's a bun of only if it's kohen gadol, but it's not something personal which family members inherited. The Rebbe says even the daughters, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that Rambam brings down. And the Rebbe now will explain something unique about the karbonas chavitim. Oizai, Api Hanal, as the chiluk zwischen Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon is aplukte in them gather from Minchas Chavitim. Based on the above, that this is Machloikes is disagreeing what is the definition of Chavitim. Oich wenn der Kohen Gadol allein bringt the Mincha, even when he brings it himself. Yesh levayir noch achiluk in the Makrovas Achitim, we can explain another distinction when you brought the Chavitim. The Gemara asks, Rabbi Yehuda chakoylo mayovidlei. The Gemara explained that according to Rabbi Shimon, how does he know that you bring it from the tzibur? It says in Pasuk chakoylo. So the Gemara says Rabbi Yehuda, who says that the sons bring it, or the family bring it, the Yershim bring it. So what is he going to do with the pasuk Chok Olam, which seems to imply that Shel Olam comes to the Tzibur? And the Gemara answers Chok Olam Tehei, that there should be an eternal, always, that the Kohen Gadol will always bring, the Mebona will every time have to bring it. Why do we need a pasuk like that? And we already know that a Kohen Gadol brings it all the time. That's what the Kohen Gadol, the original Kohen Gadol, the father Kohen Gadol, brought it all the time. So the son also. Why does the pasuk have to tell you that it should be forever such a rule that the Kohen Gadol needs to bring it any day? Is Toisus Masbir. Toisus explains the Haba Mina Arin Makriv Chavitin Bechol Yom. Because you think that Aaron brings the Chavitim every day, as the din is a Kohen Gadol. And the sons, when they become Kohen Gadol, like the pasuk says, Bon of Mitachto, when they become Kohen Gadol. Even though they have already been educated, they were dedicated. You bring when they were Kohanim, so they do one when they become Kohanim Gedolim. Only when they become Kohanim Gedolim. Even though, what is the pasuk telling you that they need to be bring the Minchas Chavitu Kohen Gadol? Because they became a Kohen Gadol now. We need a special limud that you bring it every day. Und Toisus and Toisus says Rav Shimon Leslie Hai Svara. He doesn't hold of this Svara that we need a pasuk that this should be all the time, that they might be exempt of bringing the karbonis, the sons bringing every day. He thinks it's obvious. So why do we have a pasuk of chukah lo'ilam tei? It must be telling us. And now, what do we need a pasuk chukah lo'ilam? That you bring it from Reb Shimon holds, you bring it from the tzibur. That's why he said bring it from the tzibur. So what is the idea that they're arguing here? Whether we understand, we don't need a pasuk. You understand it on your own. As that also for generations to come, you'd have to bring the carbon every day, which would be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. And he says that Would be that we need it for all the time. We shouldn't think that you don't have to bring it only one time. And you know it on your own. And according to Reb Shimon, know it on your own. Other medavder of home alimud biyuchad, or you need especially to learn it out from this pasuk that this should go on forever. It does move on up here now, so we understand it based on the previous explanation. The avoidus hatmidiyos in mikdash seinen verbunden mit dem tzibur. The constant avoidus in the mikdash are associated, tied to the tzibur. But tzibur is a metzias tmidiyos unitchist. The community, the public, is a constant and eternal community. With the din as tzibur loimeis, as the din is that a tzibur does not die, because there's always a continuation. There's always people of the tzibur. The river, the das Rabbi Shimon as chavite kohen gadol zainen al derech v'akorban tzibur. Since according to Rabbi Shimon they are like a communal korban, darf man nit haben kein limud miyuchot as der tzibur mincha tamid. We don't need a pasuk like Tosfos says. Shimon doesn't need a pasuk mincha tamid. Is euch ledoides. Das is bedaimet to korban tamid. Was vet nikra b'chol yom. This is similar to the korban tamid, which is brought every day. So we don't need that pasuk. That pasuk is telling us, according to Reb Shimon, Mishal Olam Huba. The das Rabbi Yehuda Ober, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Baal that does is a korban yochid. Since the korban yochid, the korban from Kohen God Latzmi, it's his personal korban. Was by korban yochid gefindt man nit as man as soll kommen tamid b'chol yom. We don't find as an individual korban should come every day. The riber happen on malimud needs something to teach us. And the mitzvah hakrov and the korban yochid of this korban yochid is chukah lo'ilum tehei, that it needs to be for always. Shebechol yom yakrivenu, that he needs to bring it every single day, because otherwise on our own we don't know that a korban tzibur, that this korban yochid of the Kohen Gadol is every day, and that's why he learns it from that lo'ilum tehei, from the pasuk chukah lo'ilum. So the ches, on this we can say, as the chiluk is not nor in them tzimedarf of them haben a limud miyuchad. It is not only whether we need a special pasuk to tell us this, or is euch a chiluk in them oifen v'geder hatmidiyus from them korban. It's more than that, but it also makes a difference in the way and what is defined the continuous of the korban. Whether every day is a new chiyuv or it's a continuous chiyuv. Yes, Lemer, we can say the chiyuvim tmidim efatzibur, the constant obligation on the community is nit in an oifen. It's not in a way as yeder tog is done noch anayer chiyuv. Every day there's an additional new chiyuv. Nor as is do ein chiyuv tmidi shonim chiyuv, but rather there's one continuous obligation which continues. Just like the community is one continuous existence, it goes on and all the time. Canal also the obligation is a continuous one. Same thing will apply to the Chavite Kohen Gadol. If we say that they're similar to a korban tzibur, is the chiyuv akravose, then the obligation to offer it in an oifen from mincha tamid, that we got to do it every time. Ein chiyuv tmida, one chiyuv tmida, obligation to bring a korban minchas chavitim. Which rests upon him on that day that he was anointed and he became educated for avodah, if makriv zayin b'chol yom v'yom, to bring every day and day. Al derech de chiyuv from korban tzibur al tamid al tzibur, similar to the obligation of the korban tamid on the community. But if we say it's an individual korban, the baal ba yochid is the taught there in Yanad Middle. Yochid doesn't have this idea of continuous al derech v'atzibur versus lemeis, which would be by a community which doesn't die, but the person does die and he changes. Darf man zogun. So then we have to say the chiv akrob of minchas tamid, the obligation of mincha tamid, the constant main As bechol yom v'yom, that on every day and day is doif in Kohen Gadol, a bezuder nayir chiv l'hakriv chavit, a separate new obligation to bring the chavit. Apizeh, bet euch sein verstandig, die droshes hat eures Kohen of Posik will understand the drosha that there's Kohen of Posik, zeh korban aren b'yom Moshe chayse gomer mincha tomit. So he says, v'zel l'shoyne. B'yom shenimshach, from the day he was anointed, maybe asira se'efa adaylam, he brings a tenth of an ephah forever. Oy einoi, oimer b'yom imoshach oisoi. Or maybe the pasuk says, on the day that he was anointed, elo b'yom shenimshach maybe asira se'efa umafsik. He brings a tenth of the ephah one day and mafsik. Talmud loymar, the pasuk says mincha tomit. Has to be always. Amani mekayim b'yom imoshach oisoi. So why does it say b'yom Moshech? Because it's all the time. B'yom Moshech meifi asira sa'ifa ad elam. On the day that he was anointed, he brings asira sa'ifa until ever. So it doesn't seem to be understood. What is he answering? As the verter b'yom Moshech learning, as b'yom Moshech maybe chula ad elam, that you bring it every day. Why do we need the pasuk b'yom Moshe Chayse to teach you that you bring it ad olam? As es volt gestanden bloß mincha tomit. Du would have said the mincha tomit, volt man auch gewusst, dass man darf ständig bringen dem Korban miyom, when er is geworden a Kohen Gadol, b'yom Moshe Chayse, starting with that day that he became a Kohen Gadol, until ever. Why do we need the pasuk b'yom Moshe Chayse? But apianal kamen zogun, but based on the Bible says that der Kohen, as der Toiras Kohanim to Toif, what he's coming to tell us over here, coming up with this idea, as yeder tog ad olam heist hayom Moshe Chayse, that every day forever is the day that he was anointed. The yom Moshe Chayse atzmei is nimshach, that the day he was anointed is continuous. This continues. Was dos gita hasbore in them gather from mincha tomid. This explains what it means mincha tomid. If it just says mincha tomid, you do it every day, maybe like an individual korban every day for the Kohen Gadol. But mincha tomid is trying to tell you that it's not an individual; it's a continuous. As the Tmidis by state in them was jeder Tag is the chiv to bringen them korban mincha, that you have to bring the korban mincha every day. Wie das wird given the Yom Moshe Chayse, as if it was the day he was anointed. What's the different la halacha? V'yesh loymar. This is this would also make a difference. Loy der hasbor in them gather from minchas tomid. This is the way we explain minchas tomid, that it's continuous. Kumtuis as the chavite kohen gadol was mizmakri b'chol yom. That when you bring it every day is a gather from minchas chinuch. That's a mincha of education, re-educating. B'yom Moshe Chayse. V'meila mokum loymer meil, we can say perhaps as punkt that kohen gadol tor lechatchila niton. Kein avoida. He's not allowed to do any avoida. The Kohen Gadol bizer bring zayin minchas chinuch till he brings his mincha of education. As he says b'chol yom v'yom, similar every day. As a ton niton akopon lechatchila, to begin with, kein avoida eder bring the chavitim before he brings the chavitim, because it's a himoshach oisoy, continuous, that takes place every day versus just bring another chiv for bringing for the Kohen Gadol, bringing a korban chavitim every day. And the Rebbe says that this fits also with the teaching in the Likutei Torah. Test. Der biur anal in them gather from minchas tomid. Loiter hasbora, this is a korban yochid. This explanation above, defining what a mincha tomid, as we explain, that it's a korban yochid, which would be like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. As the Yom Moshe Chayse is an inyan nimshach. As zoyas b'chol yom ert anayir chiyuv from havos korban chinuch. That the day, that every day becomes a new obligation of a chinuch. Because the whole explanation that the Rebbe gave is because we're saying that it's b'chol yom tamid. There's a new obligation. It's like a yochid. If it is a korban tzibur, then we said it's a general obligation. There's not a separate obligation every way. The way the Rebbe explained the Toras Kohanim, that's according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that it's a new chiyuv, it's a korban tamid every day. So as the Yomi Moshe says at Inyan Nimshach, that you continue with every day, you have to be making a new korban. Azoyis b'chol yoyim vertanai, azoyas b'chol yoyim vertanai chiyuv. From that boy's korban chinuch, there's a new obligation. It's not a one-time obligation that is like by the korban tzibur, which continues forever, but new every day, individual. This also fits with the explanation of Likutei Torah, the Chassidic Parsha, the Chassidic portion. Von einige Woche from this week, the portion of Tzav. He asks over there on the language of the verse, it says, the day you anointed. From the day, not on the day, but from starting with the day Moshe Choisei. It's not just that day, but it says Mincha Tomit, so from Miyem Moshe Choisei. And the answer to this is Kidei Al Yidei Yiyah B'chol Yom V'Yom Ad Olam, so that it should be in every day forever. Gilui B'chinas Madregas Yom Moshe Choisei should reveal that level of Yom Moshe Choisei. B'Yom Moshe Choisei continues. Firtuis Adosis was a state, the Korban Arin, that's the Mincha Tomit, the Hainu Ad Olam, that this is forever. The Afal Pikein, Ubechinas B'Yom Moshe Choisei, still B'Yom Moshe Choisei, beautiful, just like the Rebbe explained. But Dasim Masim Im Mavur Li'ila Derech HaNigla, this fits with what the Rebbe explained before, according to Nigla, B'chol Yom V'Yom is Dod Der Yom Moshe Choisei, that every day and day there is the day that he was anointed. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Tzav Tovshin Chavov, Matzoi Shabbos Parshas Tzav Tovshin Lamed Ches.